everyone? It's your boy Luke here for our round 1 prize picks targets for this year's Arnold Palmer Invitational. These Thursday picks are the 5 that I have the most confidence in, that I already have a card in, and hopefully we can hit some 12.5x value. Last week at the Honda Classic was a ton of fun, a Florida golf course that brings a ton of cardage into play. Of course, the weather wasn't ideal either, especially there towards the end of Sunday, and as a result, we saw a lot of the unexpected come through. This week here at Bay Hill, another really difficult Florida track. We can expect a similar amount of carnage. It's just what we're used to seeing down here in Florida, where conditions get tough and where there is a ton of water in play. So the first thing we'll do here is we'll hop into a little bit of research here for Thursday, talk about how the course played last year, also do a little bit of a touch on the weather, see if there'll be any major impacts there, and then hop right into the picks. So with that being said, let's go on and get right on into it. Alright, so on the screen you can see the data golf profile for the API, and the real main thing to notice here is first off the scoring average. This is a par 72, but still plays over a stroke over par, so that's a 73.06 scoring average, and sometimes when the wind kicks up, we can see much higher than that, closer to 74 or even 74.5. What we really want to focus on for prize picks though, of course, is the driving accuracy percentage and the greens and regulation percentage over here. Both slightly lower than the tour average. Driving accuracy just 3.2% less than what we're used to seeing week to week. And with greens and regulation, it's a whole 7.9% less. Even with those numbers, a lot of the props on the board are inflated a little bit lower than they should be. And some of these fairway lines are actually a little bit higher than they should be. So I still see plenty of edges for this week, especially when we consider the weather, which this is a very early look at Thursday. This video is coming out on Tuesday afternoon, so a lot could change between now and Thursday morning. But in the forecast, we have very solid conditions. Not really much of a chance of rain other than in the morning where we might see a sprinkle at the very most, but 2 to 4 mile an hour winds for everything that we can see here. So as a result, if they're playing in pristine conditions on Thursday, a golf course that, again, last year played difficult, but they weren't having all that much trouble hitting these greens or these fairways, I'm going to be taking a lot of the overs when it makes sense, right? The guys that are solid iron players that have lines that are a little bit too low are going to make a lot of sense. But with the fairways, like I said, even though you hit just slightly less fairways here than PGA Tour average, it seems as if Prize Picks has priced them up a little bit higher than they should be. So let's go ahead and hop right into the board, which first and foremost, we're going to start with greens and regulation, where I like taking the overs here. Like I said before, you hit a little bit less than average here, just 60%. But because we have 18 greens of regulation, that means you're going to be hitting 11 to 12 greens of regulation on average. So guys like a Corey Connors, a Sungjae Im, and a Wills Outdoors, who are all at 11.5, and all also happen to be some of the best iron players in all of the PGA Tour, are going to be prime candidates for the over. So first and foremost with Corey Connors, this is typically somebody that would be priced towards the top of the board. He is, quite frankly, at least over the last 2 years, if we give him a big enough sample size, one of, if not the best iron players in the world. In fact, he hits a higher green and regulation percentage than pretty much everyone else on the board other than Jon Rahm. So for him to be a whole 1.5 greens of regulation less than a Jon Rahm shows you that they really are accounting for that recent form. Because he's had a few bad tournaments in a row with those irons, they've priced him down to 11.5, and he's had a lot of success at this golf course in the past. He has a 3rd place finish here, a couple made cuts, a couple missed cuts mixed in there as well, but those were early on in his career before he really established himself. So I like hitting the over there. I also like hitting the over on Sungjae Im, who was in a very similar situation, struggled last week at the Honda Classic. In fact, was somebody I had quite a big investment in here at the Honda Classic and outright bet on, a lot of DFS exposure, but ended up falling short of that. He gets back to a golf course that, again, he's had a lot of success at. And in Florida in general, Sungjae Im has had some of the best stretches of golf in his career. Of course, the win at the Honda Classic, a few other top 10 finishes to boot as well, and also elite course history around Bay Hill. So at 11.5 greens of regulation, he's somebody I have projected closer to 12.6 greens of regulation. Actually, a little bit less than Corey Connors, who I have projected for 12.9 greens of regulation, but both still very comfortable there for the over. And the last green of regulation prop we are considering is also the over on Wills Outdoors. He's not nearly the same pedigree as a Corey Connors or a Sungjae Im when it comes to the ball striking. He's about a 0.15 shots gained approach less per round than those other two players, but of late has been much better. He's been in a groove of late. He's put up some solid performances. Of course, had that close second place finish there at Torrey Pines. So for him to be towards the bottom of the board tied with people that are just inferior iron players. I mean, most notably, someone like a Kevin Kisner, a Justin Rose, or even a Jason Day at this point of his career. For these three guys to be at that same price tag is actually a little bit disrespectful. And for them to only be 0.5 greens of regulation higher than somebody like a Ricky Fowler or a Patrick Reed really shows you a lot of the value that we have here. I have Will Zalatoris projected for 12.5 greens of regulation, which is a solid amount more than the average here. Again, the average is just 60%, which means that these guys are going to hit right around 11.3 on average. But these aren't average iron players. Like I said before, Corey Connors, a top 5 iron player in the world over the last 2 years. Sungjae Im is top 15 in that category. And over the last 3 months, Will Zalatoris top 5 in the world with his iron play. Next up, let's move over to the fairways. And like I said before, it's not a huge difference here and at other golf courses when it comes to fairway percentage, right? It's only a 3.2% difference. So you would imagine that guys would hit a good amount of fairways here. It's just that Prize Picks has accounted for that. You have guys up here at 10.5, 10 fairways out of just the 14 available on the golf course. So that is well above the average that we've seen here at this golf course. So for guys like a Tommy Fleetwood or even a Ricky Fowler, which I'm going to be taking the under on both of these guys, both of them are extremely inaccurate. I'd be willing to take the under on pretty much almost everyone on this board. It's just the fact that these two are extremely inaccurate. It makes them the best plays on the board. But if you wanted to sprinkle in a ton more guys here, I'd be willing to do that as well. A couple other candidates before we hop into the main two for that. I mean, Will Zalatoris, for as long as he hits it, not necessarily the most accurate. Same thing with the Patrick Reed. I'd be considering that. Scotty Scheffler, also more of a bomber than an accuracy guy. But let's go ahead and talk about Tommy Fleetwood and Ricky Fowler. First off, Tommy Fleetwood, over his last 50 measured rounds, has a fairway percentage lower than 55%. That is one of the worst numbers on tour. So for him to be at 9 fairways hit, which would be hitting just over 66% of fairways here, and a golf course that only surrenders about 63% on average, going to be a clear under. In fact, his percentage chance of hitting the under there at 9 is upwards of 85%, making it one of the best props on the entire board. Next up, we have Ricky Fowler there at 9 fairways hit. He's not much better than Tommy Fleetwood. His accuracy off the tee is right around 57.5%, about 3.5% higher. So if he's going to be hitting about 55, 57% here at most, that's going to be right around the 7 to 8 fairways at max. So his percentage chance isn't quite as high as Tommy Fleetwood. It's closer to 77% chance to hitting the under, but still two of my favorite props on the board. And because we're able to take 3 overs and 2 unders, that of course gets us to the 12.5x parlay. I haven't entered this card yet. I'm going to in the next hour, so we make sure that these lines don't move. But I'm imagining I'm going to put probably $50 on it. I really am confident in it. Because we're doing the 5 picks, we do get the flex, which means that we get at least 3 out of 5 right, which we've done for most of our videos here on the channel, or at least get our money back. But because I think these lines are just a little bit off on round 1, again, they should get a little bit more accurate throughout the weekend as those Prize Picks guys get more and more data. I want to take advantage of this as early and often as possible. So as a result, I'm not just going to be entering this card. I'm also going to have a card of all overs for greens and regulation. Like I said, I think there's many people on the board we could also consider taking, like a Keegan Bradley, who almost put in the video here, or Sam Burns at 11.5, or even a little bit further up the board, I consider taking Hideki Matsuyama at 12. He's just an elite iron player, somebody I expect to hit plenty of greens regulation. And like I said, with the fairways hit, also a few other guys I'm willing to mix in. That's all I've got for today's Prize Picks preview. Before we go on and get out of here, make sure you go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your favorite prop on the board is. Whether it was something that I mentioned or something completely off of my radar. I'd love to hear from you guys down below in the comments. And as always, going to have even more Prize Picks content dropping throughout the weekend for you. Expect that right around 8 p.m. Eastern time after the round ends. So on Thursday, Friday, and of course for Saturday, for Sunday's round, we'll have you covered for all 4 rounds. And of course, if you're looking for DFS content, course breakdowns, everything PGA Tour, that's exactly what I got you guys covered here on the channel. So make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already, so you don't miss any of that content to come. Best of luck with all of your prop hunting tomorrow, and let's get this cash.